Hey everyone, thank you for stopping by my channel. My name is Mark, and in this video I wanted to touch on grief. Why we feel grief, what is grief, and what can we do to help ourselves heal from this very dense emotion so that we could move forward into a space of joy. So stay tuned. Hey everyone, I appreciate you stopping by my channel. If you have not already, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. So grief. Grief is a very, very heavy emotion, very dense emotion, it can be debilitating physically. I know many of you have experienced it. I've experienced it. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why we experience grief and what we can do to move through it and return to a state of harmony vibrationally. So grief is usually caused by, it's a traumatic event. The loss of a loved one, maybe the loss of a job, a career, things of that nature. Those give rise to feelings of grief. And why do we have feelings of grief? Well, we have feelings of grief because we are taught at a very early age that we are life in and of itself. We are encapsulated in life, okay, which means that we're born here and this is our life, and when our life's over, it's gone. Okay, so that is a very, very fearful type of an event, an emotion, ending something. Okay, we cherish life. When life ends, it's just, the fear is just unbearable of that. So when we lose a loved one dies, we feel this grief because it really ties us to our own mortality. Okay, so it strikes up a fear in us. And of course, we feel grief because we're not going to be able to connect with that loved one anymore on a physical level. But really what's going on is that it makes us aware of our own mortality. And it does this because we are taught from a very early age that death is final. And I know from a religious perspective, a lot of religions talk about heaven and how we move on beyond that. And that really is taught from the perspective of bringing comfort to us while we're alive and comfort to us when our loved ones die. Okay, so that's where that comes from. So it reinforces the loss and the finality of death, and that's what gives rise to grief. So anytime somebody dies around us or we have an event that's life-altering that we maybe don't expect, it triggers these memories and these programs of what we've been taught when we were younger. Maybe even we've experienced death, maybe of a grandparent or a parent or even a sibling at some point, and that trauma was reinforced just by the energy that was projected by the people around you. So we observe these emotions in others and we act accordingly because it's in alignment with our upbringing, our religious upbringing, our cultural upbringing. So we reinforce these and we create these energetic blockages in the body. That creates these triggers, these feelings of grief. And when somebody passes away, I'm going to keep using that as an example because that's really the most powerful experience of grief is when somebody passes away. It brings these traumas up of this finality, okay, of losing something. So we continue to operate from that frequency, from that vibration. And it's very painful because it is so far out of alignment with what our soul knows, our truth, our cosmic truth, our higher self. Okay? We know deep down that we don't die. Okay? We continue on. In fact, we were here before we were born. Okay, we just don't remember that. Okay, so there is no death. In fact, I did a video recently on life or death being flipped, and I talked about how when we're born, we're really dying because we're being cut off from our higher selves, our larger perspective. And when we die, we're being reborn because we're opening up to it. So, but when we're here, it's flipped the other way, and we fear death. And because of that, these feelings of grief continue to arise. So, what we need to do when we experience these feelings is recognize that we are moving out of alignment with our soul's energy. Okay? And by doing this and staying in these lower frequencies, these lower vibrations, we are cutting ourselves off from our higher selves, from our cosmic energy, from our deceased loved ones. Okay? So that's the frequency that we're taught to live in when somebody dies. And what we need to do again is recognize that and realize that there is no death, that our loved ones simply have returned to their quantum energetic state. And they are here. We have access. Okay, so once we realize that, we could start to heal from grief. And the faster we can accept that and let go of grief, and you may have some other emotions come up as well, like maybe if you don't grieve, you'll feel guilty. I know when my parents passed recently, I had always feared, like, how am I going to get through that? How am I ever going to get through that? How am I going to survive when that happens? And I had awakened, and then after my awakening, both had passed, and I had some amazing events around both of those situations. But I didn't really go through the traditional grieving process because I had this grounded knowing of the truth. And I know the night my mom passed, I was able to communicate with her. She came through. So as we can let go of these feelings and these patterns and recognize them for what they are and heal them and move back into alignment and know that we are all one and that their energy is available to us, we can move into alignment with our soul and maybe even experience connectedness and communication with them. So that's really how grief gets healed. And I know it's a very deep subject for a lot of people. Again, we're taught death is final, and we have that very rooted fear of death, of our own death. So that's a tough one to really navigate. And I'm telling you, if you just move back into alignment and realize that there is no death, that you were here before you were born, you're going to be here after you die. Same with your loved ones. Everything is connected. You could start to move into that frequency of knowing that is already present within you and open yourself up to the infinite available energy of those that have passed and communicate with them that way instead of living in your mind and cutting off your very own source energy. So I hope this video helped you guys. If you liked it, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. And if you've had any experiences like that and have been able to help or heal yourself by recognizing some of these truths within you, please go ahead. I'd love to hear that. Leave a comment below. But thanks again for stopping by.